Andy Sneap's here, and we're at Andy Sneap's for the recordproduction.com interview. So, Andy, tell us how you got into the music biz, because you were a guitarist, weren't you, before you were a producer?
Yeah, which is actually in the music business. Yeah. I mean, I was playing guitar from when I was 12 years old. So
was it a musical upbringing? Did you have
no, not at all.
No.
Well, I had lessons, but my family aren't musical in the slightest. And by the time I was 18, I'd signed my first record deal, and I was out in Hanover, recording my first album. September when I was 18. I did 3 albums with the band I was in, a band called Sabbath. When that fell apart in the early 90s, I'd always been into the recording side of things and always been fascinated by it, and I'd sort of enjoyed the studio side of things almost more than the live side. So just going into that side, I'd got some demo equipment. I got a little 8-track reel-to-reel, set it up at the rehearsal room and started demoing my own material and doing local bands, and of course ADATs were popping up then, so I went the ADAT and Mackie route, and had 24 tracks of that before I knew it. And I was doing a lot of live work as well. I was working in-house at a big club in Nottingham, doing all the live bands coming through.
So it's just an enthusiasm and interest in the gear.
I mean, I've always been a total gearhead, totally into trying to find guitar tones and stuff.
So the band you were in, was that mates from school, or was that?
No, I'd met them at local shows, and it turned out 2 of them had another band that weren't really doing much. So.
And it was definitely of a metal persuasion.
Oh, very metal, yeah.
So what got you into metal in the first place?
Just the energy. I mean, I'll tell you what it was. But I've got a twin brother who bought me a Status Quo single when I was 12 years old, and you don't look back after you've heard the Quo, do you? That's true. The rule. I still love the Quo. I mean, I got into that. I got into AC/DC, got into Iron Maiden. All the usual bands. And I just love the energy of it, the power of it, the volume, the vibe of it, and I still do.
Yes, never lost you.
No, never. It's never got boring. So
that's brilliant. Because I was a bit of a metal fan when I was about 17, but I kind of.
You grew up, didn't you?
I suppose so. I don't know. I'm an old fart.
I haven't. I'm still mentally 15 years old.
I just think it's probably because that was, I got into working in studios quite young. I was from that time, and being exposed to lots of other music. The last thing you want to do when you get home is put any more music on, really. Sometimes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, people say to me, "What do you listen to in your car?" It's like, well, I try and hear if the engine's still going. So I mean, I'm exactly the same. A whole day of this, and it's the last thing I do is listen to music afterwards. So it kind of kills the enjoyment for you a little bit, this job. Well, because whatever you hear, you tend to pull it apart and think, oh, what would I do to that? And, I don't like what they've done with the guitars there. But that's kind of why I still listen. If I do listen to music, I listen to the older stuff, sort of the classic bands that I was listening to when I was young, because sort of, what music's like. It always takes you back to when you first heard it, doesn't it? So I don't really tend to keep up much with what's going on now. I'm always listening back to the old Sabbath and Maiden albums. There was a quality there. I think that's. People, you get these vinyl buffs that hark back to vinyl. I'm sure they only like it is because mentally it takes them back to when they, that smell of the PVC cover when they're pulling the vinyl out. Music does that to people.
Totally. Yeah. So, what was your sort of first professional engagement then in a studio? How did you actually get into studios?
Well, I was doing.
Presumably, you had your own little setup.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I wasn't far from here. I was about 10 miles from here in an industrial block.
I see. Right.
But I did a few sort of singles for hardcore bands and stuff, and I did. There's 1 or 2 things that I did that went on to get signed and got released to like Earache and Music for Nations, and I think that probably the first professional thing I did was a band called Whatever for Music for Nations, which was sort of a pop punk metalish type band. Right. That would have been back in probably 93.
Yeah. So did you start getting calls from Music for Nations?
Because I was an in-house engineer at a 24-track studio in Nottingham by this time. So
okay, right.
And they were looking for deals and trying to get the labels involved. So
right. So you got a proper job in a studio.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, as proper as that's going to get.
Yeah. On the basis of what you'd learned at home.
I've always managed to blag my way into jobs. Right. I shouldn't really say that, should I? But I remember I was in with that one. You know, all I've been doing was 8-track recording. And I think they got an AMEC Mozart in there and a couple of Atari machines. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do it. You know, manual. You know.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously good at divulging information. Yeah. Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know what it's like. It's never as complicated as you think it's going to be. No, you can always find your way. You know. Yeah. And so I did that, and you know, I was working on the Cults European tour in '94. Greg Price, who's Ozzy's engineer, he was doing them on front of house, and I got a call. My old sound guy was doing Rage Against the Machine and Faith No More back then, and he knew I was engineering, so he gave me a call and said, "Do you think you do the support band on the Cult tour?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." You know, in the deep end, 30k worth of EV and I forget what desk we had, some tack desk, you jump into those situations and. It really, you're sort of forced to learn about it, and it forces you to move quick on things. And I've never been one, scared of taking risks like that. So even with, like putting all the money into the studio here, if you haven't done it and right, there's £500,000 to do this, people will be scared of doing it. Yeah. But you've got to take those risks to get on in business, really. So I've always jump to those sort of opportunities.
Was there anybody you'd say you learned studio techniques from, or that you?
A little bit. I mean, I worked with Colin Richardson, who I was going to get to this actually. Yeah. At the studio I was working at in Nottingham, Colin started coming through there, and I'd be engineering for him. So he'd done Machine Head, Fear Factory, Napalm Death. He might have done some obituary stuff. A lot of the heaviest stuff. From America he was doing, right, and he was sort of seen as the guy then. He'd done Carcass as well, so when Colin started coming through, I was doing a bit of work for him as his engineer, doing a lot of the MIDI stuff and the general dog's body work, and then by the end of '96 he was working on the second Machine Head album out in LA, and they'd fired the engineer off that, or the engineer had left. I don't know how it quite worked out. And he was in need of an engineer, and I got his wife, who was managing him at the time, called me up on the Monday night saying, "Can you be in San Francisco on Wednesday?" So I literally got on a plane and went and stayed out in America for 6 weeks, and that was sort of my first bit of work out there. I was back out there within 3 months, and then it's like in this business, you do good work for someone, you get your foot in the door, and it keeps going. So I didn't look back from there, really.
So what do you think makes you good at that kind of maintaining those sort of relationships, or developing them?
I just think you've with musicians. I think I am a musician, so I'm very much on the same wavelength. I've done 3 albums as a guitar player, sort of the other side of the glass, so to speak. So I think I've got what's the right word? Is it empathy? Where you've got a relationship where you understand where they're coming from, and I think you've got to. You've got to see the strengths in people, and as a band, you've got to be able to see if someone's struggling, if they're not in the right headspace. Do you
ever have a situation where a guitarist is a bit in awe of you and maybe a bit nervous?
Oh yeah. How do
you diffuse that situation?
I usually take the guitar off and play the riff better than they do, and you usually find within half an hour they've picked the feet up a little bit. You think I'm joking, don't you?
That sounds like the tactful way of doing it.
Yeah, English tact. Yeah, it's funny with the Americans actually, because we're like over here, we're quite dry and sarcastic. And you get to know a band, and there's a lot of that flying around the studio. And 1 or 2 Americans just don't get it. You soon learn within a couple of days, right? We can't quite go that route with this session. The ego's a little bruised here, But they're actually, most of them are all right,
Yeah. You haven't offended anybody too much then?
No, not too bad. I have been taken to one side a couple of times and told to, what to say and what I can and can't say, but I won't tell you who said that.
Oh, go on.
No.
So you how long is this place here? It's all looking very smart and slightly new, if I may say.
I've had it nearly 10 years, actually.
Blimey. Yeah, well, you're looking after it very well.
Well, no, because literally 2 hours ago we were putting the last light bulb in, so we've done a total refit of the past 2 days. So, right. Yeah.
So it's had a bit of a tarting up.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So, yeah.
But you've had this building for 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, all the building work that's through here, it took probably 1.5 years to do all the sort of reconstruction modelling on this part, and then another year for the accommodation that we put in. So
right. So you're fully residential.
Yeah.
So you have bands come from the States?
All over, yeah. States, Germany,
right.
Sweden, wherever.
So you give them an all-in deal that includes you producing the studio and the accommodation?
Yeah, it works out better. I mean, before I had this place, obviously I had the other place as well, but I didn't have anywhere where they could come and stay, do the whole thing. And, I was going out to America 6-7 months out of the year, and, we'd be hiring a place, say in Texas, for instance, and I'd see all this money getting ploughed into the studio by the label, and I'd be thinking, well, I could be having that. As a studio owner, the way it works, obviously I charge them for the studio and I charge them a production fee, but I can cut them a deal on both, so it works out more favourable for the band, works out more favourable for me, because I'm getting part of the, it's paying for my studio as well. Yeah. And I've got an asset there at the end of the day, so everyone wins, really.
So you had a place before this, then, did you?
Yeah, like I said, that was in a small industrial block, not far from it, but that was just when it was ADATs and sort of the first Pro Tools rig.
I see. Yeah. So you sort of just took a reckless plunge to invest in building all this.
Yeah, really, because I didn't even have a place to live at the time. I'd be working like I say out in America, and I'd be coming back and didn't have a base to work from. So I'd be staying in a friend's kitchen one week and staying in a hotel the next. So I had a little house in Nottingham for a while, and then I thought I may as well get somewhere where I can get set up properly. Yeah.
So are you from this neck of the woods then?
Yeah, literally just down the road. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Jolly good.
Yeah, so I've sort of been here, been round the other side of the world, and come back round here. So whether I stay here or not, I don't know. But I could see myself. Yeah, I'll probably die upstairs. Yeah,
you do seem like.
Yeah,
well, you seem pretty well established. There's
it's all right.
Of stuff.
Yeah,
and it's very comfy, isn't it? So how old's this? This is a new thing, is it?
It's probably 3 months, I think. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what prompted that? Were you working in the box before?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I'd looked at these when they first came out, and I was sort of shall I? And I've kind of got bored with mixing in the box a little bit, and I'd always liked SSLs. I'd always been mixing on the 4000s or what else have we had? Yeah, there was an E I was working on a lot in Texas, and there's a G's down in LA and stuff, and they always give that certain sort of broadcast quality.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's just nice. I found it nice since I've got it, just to after learning the strengths of mixing in the box, to have both, to go back a little bit. And I've been denying it the past sort of 8 or 9 years since I've been mixing in the box, going, you can get away with it. It sounds, you can't hear the difference. And I had some in mixers and stuff, and I actually couldn't really warrant that. I didn't think it did make that much of a difference.
No.
But actually, there is a certain headroom to this that I think makes it easier. I was saying to Mike earlier that I don't think my mixers are better for going through the SSL, but I think they come together easier, and I think it adds a little bit more of that creative flow that you want on a mix, if you know what I mean.
Just the fact you can reach and
and also speed wise as well. You want a bit more top end on the guitars. Bang, you've got it on all your mixers. You haven't got to go into each session, And I mean, the EQ does sound killer on it, I've got to say. I mean, it's. I'm actually. It's weird because I always used to like the EQ. But I'm actually liking the G on this. I don't know what's happened to me.
Well, there were two different EQs, weren't there?
Well, there's the black and was it the brown?
The brown first, and then there was the black,
which was softer, wasn't it?
Well, the black was a bit more pokey and a bit narrower bell curves,
which I always thought suited metal and rock because you could smack it up quite well. Yeah. You can actually hear it,
Absolutely,
when you turn
exactly,
it. Yeah. And the red was a bit of a compromise. The G.
Yeah.
But it's sweet. It's really, the G's really sweet on it, I think.
So has it got a bell button on the top and bottom? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because the later G's had the divide by.
I've got that's the G down there. Look.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got the ×3 on it. Yeah.
Which I never liked particularly because you end up with 2-band EQ because you always do that.
Yeah.
Then you don't know where to go.
Yeah, I did have. That's not got a ×3 on it.
No, it's got the proper old bell.
Yeah. So is that like the first G?
So that must be, I don't know, or late E or early G, I suppose.
Yeah.
Early G? Early G.
Ali G.
Ali G. That's it. Very good. So how does it work in terms of, obviously the main advantage of in the box is that instantly you record your mix and you're away.
Yeah.
What happens with all this stuff then?
Well, you've got total recall.
So you're not bothered about spending the 10 minutes to go through and...
No, I don't spend 10 minutes doing that's fine. I mean, it works really well as well, you know, just shuffling through the channels.
Yeah.
I even the other day I went out and bought, I don't know if you've seen there, I've got the sync unit in there, so I can actually use the old school mix.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know if the picture of they used to have the office in, was it in Oxford or something, pop up on the old E, didn't they, if you got to your 10,000th mix, you know. But I haven't seen anything like that on there. But it works exactly the same. It's like riding a bike, really. You know, you get a bit of trim on that. You know,
great.
But I haven't got round to that yet. But it's all been sort of automation's been in Pro Tools.
So that gives you the opportunity to use. There's automation built into this, is there?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, if you think about it, if you're using the insert points, say you've got a compressor on the channel, like say it was like the old tape days.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to.
Yes,
use your Pro Tools automation because you'd be pre-fader.
Yeah.
So if you're doing anything,
that gives you an opportunity to
do post-fader.
Post-fader.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Which is nice. Yeah. So yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's definitely well thought out. Really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
And it's I mean I just had the Control 24 before that, and I wasn't even using it. It was there just for show. You know. It really was. It was like a glorified talkback mic.
That's the Focusrite.
Yeah.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you record through this then?
I will do. I've not done yet.
I see.
It's the K pre's on this, is it? Yeah, which aren't too shabby.
Absolutely, yeah.
I always like the strange. Actually, the pre on the, which one was it? The E. Had something about it. People used to say they were a little bit cloudy and not very defined, but plugging a 58 into one of them, it sat in the mix great.
Yeah, it's weird. Nobody. I mean, you didn't use SSLs for the sound quality in those days necessarily, but in fact, I mean, they sound absolutely fine.
Yeah. People really do put far too much emphasis on all that. You know,
absolutely.
Kids on forums now are like, oh, it's got to be this bit of kit and this bit of kit, and it's like, well, actually, if you move the mic about that much, you might get a bit more what you're after. You know,
we'll change the third chord in the chorus.
Yeah. How about that? That's a novel idea, isn't it? Yeah. How is the song? You know?
No, I think you're absolutely right. You've sort of touched upon something that's quite important, isn't it? Like people do get obsessed by differences between mic.
You do. I mean, it's nice to have the gear, and nice, but I was doing great recordings on Mackies and ADATs.
Exactly. Yeah. Because everyone could play their instruments and.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've got this theory that the whole. This whole digital sounds lifeless and all this sort of thing that came out. When ADATs came out, all of a sudden everyone could afford to have a studio.
Yeah.
So people were going out and they didn't know how to use the gear, buying this gear, and of course the first thing someone does, they don't blame themselves, they blame the equipment. So this equipment that actually was okay, and although it wasn't, you're going to get better quality with this sort of gear. It didn't stop the records being good,
Exactly.
But people will always blame equipment before they blame themselves.
Yeah. So talking of writing good songs and things like that, what's the process when a band comes to you and you're engaged to do a record? They'll send you some demos that they've done at home on their Pro Tools or Logic or whatever they've got. Do you have a period of rehearsing with them in a rehearsal room to go through song structures and things?
We used to do a lot more of that, probably 10, 15 years ago than what we're doing now. It's more... A lot of the stuff now is actually getting recorded by the bands, and I'm sort of, can you fix this?
Right.
I wish we were doing more of that now. I mean, when I am on an actual production job, I am in there usually from the start and trying to focus the band, trying to remind them what they actually did well, The Accept album that I just did, that was really from the word go, and to be honest, they'd lost an idea of what the band sounded like. They'd not done an album for 15 years, so it was a case of making them listen back to their old material and sort of I was pointing out what I thought were prime moments and There's lots of little things, you know, sort of working from the chorus backwards. That's usually quite, you know, if a singer's struggling with the keys that things are getting written in, you know, the chorus really should be the peak of where.
If a band have sent you a bunch of demos and you're about to start recording, will you email them and go, I think we should make the middle eight shorter in this one, or
yeah, I will, yeah. So, and a lot of the times, even when we don't, you know, it's the beauty of Pro Tools now. You know, you can still edit after the song's been done. You know, you can hear how you know they got a bit ambitious with the solo sections and ran out of ideas halfway through the solo, so you're chopping the middle eight up. You know. Yeah,
and what kind of guides you in terms of the structures? Because you're not making 3-minute radio songs, are you?
No, it's what feels right, really.
Yeah.
If something's getting boring, I always think there should be a point to whatever's happening in the song. You know. Yeah. I mean, some people won't let me do it. You know, Exodus, for instance. You know, I'll sit down with Gary, and he'll be dead set on what he wants. You know, and he'll listen to me. You know, I'll put suggestions in, and sometimes it goes in, and it's like, yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. We'll do that. But then at the end of the day, you've got to respect the musician you're working with. It's their album, and they've got to live with it at the end of the day. So if they want it to be, you know, long-winded in a certain section, or what I think's long-winded, then so be it, you know. I can put my opinion across, but I wouldn't force it on them, you know.
So how does the day-to-day running of the studio go? Do you have anybody assisting you or cleaning in?
No, it's all me.
You?
Yeah, all me, yeah. And there's a lot of work, actually, you know, when... especially when a band's been in, you know, it's amazing how much mess can be left.
Absolutely.
You know? So and just the you know, the business side of things, talking to labels. You know, America wakes up at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, so the phone starts ringing then as well. Yeah. So it's usually a long day. I'm usually going through till probably 9-10 o'clock in the evening, sat down here. You know. So yeah, I mean, sort of get started about 10-11 o'clock on bits. You know, and it's amazing how quick the day disappears, you know.
Absolutely. Do you get a lot of work where you're mixing and you're just here on your own and emailing stuff?
A lot, most of the time, to be honest. Yeah. Which I don't mind, but you know, it's always fun to actually have, you know, when the band's in, you know, a bit of rapport with the band. Yeah. You know. I mean, actually, when I am mixing, I don't really like the band sat over my shoulder, but something like I just did a Dimmu album. And Steen and Sven came over for that, but I'd done a good 10 days of work on the album before they came in. You know, I got all the donkey work out of the way and the cleaning up and some of the triggering, you know.
Right.
Because they get bored, you know.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? If you just come in to sort of oversee the interesting bit.
Yeah. Every band's got one or two guys in it who's got a vision and, you know, how it should be created. So, you know, but with the internet now these days as well, I mean, half the time I'll just have Skype running, talking backwards and forwards on that. Yeah. You know, even with the production side of it, you know, the songwriting will be sending just MIDI files backwards and forwards, and you know, just chopping bits up and you know, getting ideas that way now. So the world's definitely got a lot smaller in that respect. You know.
Yeah. Is that a good thing? Do you think?
I think it's great. Yeah.
It's helped your. I suppose it means you can do work that you wouldn't otherwise be doing. Really, in many ways.
Yeah.
So do you go to the States quite a bit still? Is that
a lot? Yeah. I mean,
have you got a favourite set of studios you're working over there? Or?
Not really. I mean, I had probably 7 months last year out in America. I was down in San Diego for 5 with Megadeth, and then we had a month in Nashville with Accept and a month in San Francisco with Exodus. I've got some Testament stuff coming up. Off to Canada next week.
So is everything generally clicked these days, done to a click track and on the grid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of... It is, yeah, it definitely is. And I think it's kind of killing music a little bit, to be honest. I mean, I think... it's a good way of working. It's, you know, it's an easy way to work. But I miss the whole... You know, when I was playing back in the day, we did it all live. Yeah. And, you know, everyone's watching the drummer. And there is an energy to that. You know, when I mix live stuff for bands, there's a certain... You know, you can still do that with a click. You know, if everyone's playing, you know, together. I think it's nice when music moves together, but you've got to be able to have the players that can do that. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's all right. You know, there's nothing worse for me than a drummer that's pushing the beat. It's like someone that's singing sharp. Yeah. It's just great. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. You know, I think you get away with singing flat and up to the note. You know, a little bit over it sometimes. But a drummer that pushes the beat, it's the opposite to John Bonham, isn't it? You know, it just sounds anxious and nervy to me. Yeah. So, if you've got a whole band playing together and the drummer's pushing the beat, it's never going to be right. So that's why I think finding quality musicians that can do it is the problem these days.
Right.
I think the old school guys can, because they actually had to learn a craft.
Yeah.
We didn't have Beat Detective and Autotune, in '87. So I think kids are tending to write songs now they're actually programming the songs and writing the songs before they've actually even learned to play it as a band. It was said to me the other week that we actually used to have to learn to play the songs in rehearsals because there was no way of recording it. Everyone's writing it on laptops now. And it's good. You can't knock it. It's good for that respect. People can be creative, but I think it's taken a lot of the feel out of it. If you listen to American radio now, every band sounds the same. Everything's quantized to hell. Everything's auto-tuned to death. And it's what would have happened if Jimi Hendrix had gone in the studio now? I'd love to do that. I'd love to get a Hendrix track and just really, really Pro Tool it to death. To see how bad you could do it.
It sounds awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It wouldn't have any. That was the thing about those bands back then.
If somebody hadn't heard Jimi Hendrix in a label now and you played it to them and go, "This is the demo," we obviously need to do a bit better.
A bit of work on that. We'll sort him out.
It just wouldn't wash, would it?
No.
But it's funny, because the rules seem to change, don't they? It's like things wouldn't get played on the radio if they hadn't already been famous for 20 years. You wouldn't get Jimi Hendrix played on Radio 1 now.
Well, the bar has got raised and raised and raised in sort of the amount, sort of the playing standard, hasn't it? But I think people have almost forgotten what music should be sometimes. It should be from feel. Music really should be from the heart. And as cliched as it sounds, a good guitarist, you can almost tell the personality by the way they play. If they're a bit quirky, they're real, positive in the playing. You can guarantee that's part of their personality.
Yeah. But presumably, even when you're working with established bands like somebody like Megadeth, who can obviously all play really well or know what they're doing, you're still going to do it to a click, aren't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, but they always had metal. Does have a side to it which is always quite mechanical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ease really. I would like it where we could get everyone in the studio together and playing as a band, but it just doesn't seem to happen these days. I don't know why, but everyone's got into a certain headspace.
I mean, do you think if you made a record that you did that, do you think people would like it?
I don't know. I think it might. Machine Head, for instance, they don't play to a click in the studio.
Right.
Although they do things separate. They record the drums first and go in. But I know Rob's very sort of anti-click. And I think it works for them. I think they do get an energy there. The other thing as well, labels will give me, 4 weeks to track an album now, where, you've got to think about, right, what's the fastest way to do this? And I do try, when we do click tracks and we do a grid, I'll put tempo changes in for the chorus and lift it, 2 BPM and try and get a bit of feel to it that way. Because it always helps when the chorus pushes a bit and that master fader push a little bit on the chorus.
So do you have it gradually ramp up in the bar?
Sometimes just that 2 BPM or BPM push just on the first hit is, just helps it a little bit.
Do you tell the drummer you're doing that?
Yeah, no, we do. Yeah,
So
he's usually doing that naturally anyway.
Yeah.
So, and what I tend to do, I'll record it live if the band haven't got a set tempo worked out. I'll go in, record the band in rehearsals and work the click off what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's giving it a little bit of a natural feel, but again, how natural do you want it?
Yeah. So I noticed your studio is mainly full of gear.
Yeah.
Is that all yours?
It's all mine, yeah.
Blimey.
I know. Chock-a-block. Yeah.
So what do you do when you haven't got your toys with you when you go to America, though?
Well, usually the band have got some toys. Yeah.
But that all gets used, presumably, when people come here.
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, a lot of that is from me playing as well.
Right.
So, that's all dumped there at the moment because I was out doing some shows a couple of weeks ago.
So you still go and play quite regularly?
Yeah, out and about a bit, yeah. Which is fun, I love it. Because we're not doing it now as it's sort of a means to an end, it's just a bit of fun now, you know.
Right, so is this with your old band?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
I see.
So all the same old guys, so it's like a lad's weekend away when we're out, you know. Yeah. Yeah, we actually, you know, it's still fun, you know, we'll pull a couple hundred, you know, 300 people a night, and it's blinding fun, to be honest, just to get up there and still do it.
Yeah. Fantastic. So you got all the gear for that, of course.
Yeah.
But you got some drums and things as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. Is that things you've bought because you thought it'd be useful to have?
Yeah, and I've got good deals on it. I mean, I've got the old Megadeth kit up there, actually. That was their B rig, the touring kit that they've just had out. And I was storing some backline for them up here in the containers, and Sean was like, I'm getting a new kit, do you want to buy it off me? And it's worth getting it for the studio, so... You know, it's worth having backline up here for when bands come over. You know,
or something like that as well. It must be if you've got a young band and they go, "Wow, it's Megadeth."
Well, I'll get 500 quid for the front heads.
Yeah,
get them on eBay. Always thinking that bit of money.
Yeah. When times are tough.
Yeah.
So, but presumably, you've got drums that you know will sound good in certain situations or for particular players.
Yeah, we actually used that kit on the Megadeth album, which is why I bought it off him when we were down in San Diego. That was one of the kits he got. So I know it sounds good. So I was like, it's got to be worth getting.
Yeah. And are you good at drum tuning and things like that?
Yeah, sort of stuff? Yeah. That's what I do it all the time. So
yeah. Do most metal guitarists detune their guitars and tune down to a lower pitch?
No, we're still at 440 on. Just on the a lot of stuff, because
a lot of bands I've worked with, not particularly metal, but prog or indie bands, they'll sometimes say, we're tuning everything down a semitone, and then the intonation's out, all sorts of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a couple of years, setting guitars up and selling guitars.
Yes, so you know how to do that.
I'm in on all that. I'm fine, but and it's like with the old 7-string stuff. That was getting popular a few years back. And we were getting bands down to a low G on some of the stuff.
Right.
And it's like, where does the bass go then? Your bass tends to either just be a knocking sound in the background or an annoying tap. So I think for metal, 440 or around there, it works best. I mean, it gives the bass somewhere to go. You can get the bass in the mix with that.
Yeah. I'm surprised you don't have more. I always assumed that most metal bands would tune their guitars down at semitone or a tone.
Yeah, some do. Yeah. I mean, especially it gets tougher as well. The old school guys, they were writing stuff in 440 20 years ago, and now for the singers to be still singing the same pitch, naturally your voice drops. So they're you get all these singers now that are just managing to get there. Guys, can we go down to semitone? And oh no,
I think everyone
got to be
goes
440.
Yeah, I think everyone does that. There's Genesis doing that in their video DVD thing when they're doing their last tour.
I think Rush do as well now, don't they? They're down a little bit.
William Morgan the other week was saying Madonna does Ray of Light down a semitone live compared to the recorded version because she's dancing.
Yeah, out of breath.
So who have you been doing recently? What have you been up to?
Well, I just did the Dimmu album, Dimmu Borgir. Did that mix here.
Right.
Just mixed Megadeth for the Big 4 DVD, which is the thing with Metallica, Slayer and Anthrax. We did the whole thing in surround. And
wow. Do you do surround stuff here then?
Yeah. I've just got another set of General X that we've got at the back of the room. So, so did that. Just doing Devil Driver at the moment for Roadrunner. Well, 36 Crazy Fists. Just did their album this year. Nevermore.
And how booked up in advance are you? Have you got things?
Yeah, usually about sort of 3 to 4 months in advance.
Right.
A bit of stuff for next year, sort of getting talked about.
Great.
So,
anything you can tell us about your?
Not really. Well, there's some Testament. We were looking at doing Testament at the end of the year, but I think that's going to get moved probably to sort of January, February, and probably Megadeth around March, April. But their touring schedule changes all the time, so.
Right.
Whether that'll happen or not, I'm not holding my breath on that.
I see.
We'll wait and see. There's a couple of other things, but I can't really mention that at the moment.
Okay. So I see you got your general. You haven't got any enormous big speakers in here.
No. To be honest, who listens at home on enormous big speakers?
No, I suppose not. But did you not find if you've got a band out tracking in the room and you wanted them to come and have a listen to the take? Don't you find yourself wanting to impress them?
Well, I've got a sub down there, so you usually get quite a lot of volume out of this.
Yeah, they're pretty loud, aren't they?
Yeah, I've not, I know what you mean. It's always nice when you've got a wall full of speakers, but I've just, I can't really. can't warrant spending, you know, that sort of money, to be honest. I mean, SSL have just robbed me on this. I'm skinned. Yeah.
Presumably you're doing quite a lot of guitar in the control room as well, if you're doing guitar overdubs, and that's loud enough for most guitarists to...
fine, yeah. Absolutely.
Do you send them out there though? Presumably you need a bit of feedback occasionally. You can.
Yeah, no. We usually do it all in here, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, if there is a bit of feedback, we'll just head stock on the cab through there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get away with it.
Jolly good. So very often it's not the whole band tracking together. Then is it? It's
very rarely now.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very rarely, and a lot of times, you know, we don't even have the whole band here.
No.
You know, we'll get the drummer and guitar player over to start off with. You put a guy guitar track down, get the drums down. You know, bass player will be in after the guitars have gone down.
Do you do an amp for bass or? Just
yeah, I do normally. I usually just record the DI and then reamp it.
Okay.
When it comes to the mix, you know.
I see. So when you're tracking the bass, you just DI it.
Yeah, just stick a bit of distortion on it. Yeah, just an amp simulator on here.
Yeah, 11 or something.
Yeah, or Sans amp or something. Yeah. So that works out fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and very. I can't think of the last time I had a whole band together.
No.
Yeah. I mean, even when we did with Exodus, you know, people were coming and going all the time, so it wasn't. You know, it wasn't everyone playing everything together.
No.
Which I miss. I mean, I do miss that. I'd like to do some sort of in-session type things. You know, I mean, when I was playing back in the late 80s, we did some Radio 1 stuff, and we'd go down Maida Vale down there. That was a great vibe. You know, everyone stood in the studio down there, just the whole band come in and listen to it afterwards. You know.
Yeah. So how do you record vocals? Have you got a booth out there?
A lot of times they're in the control room with me actually. Cause I like that, you know, the actual eye contact and just being able to discuss what you're doing. You know,
so you just stick headphones on, and do it in here.
Yeah, or just in the room through there. You know, we'll just throw them in there, and so there's still eye contact. You know.
I see.
But it's sometimes it's a lot easier if you're in the same room.
Yeah.
Just to be able to relay ideas and get points across. You know.
Yeah. And for metal, is it very often a 58 or a dynamic mic?
Usually, if it's a dynamic, I'll just use like an SM7.
Right.
Which has still got a little bit of broadcast to it, but I still like a Neumann for vocals. To be honest, you know, it's got that top end to it and the quality to it. But an SM7's pretty good if it's a real shouter because it just calms the mid range down a little bit. You know. On a condenser, it can just get a little bit too bitey at times, you know.
Yeah.
I've got a handheld Neumann as well. Is it I don't know what model it is. Is it?
KSM or KM?
It's KSM, isn't it? Is it 105 or 103 or something?
I know what you mean,
which is quite good if they just need a handheld just to get them in the right attitude, you know.
Yeah, because it's sort of a posh mic, but it looks like a dynamic. So.
Yeah. So things, you know, get right into it a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
Because I think with vocals, it's more about the actual performance than the actual audio quality sometimes. You know, you're trying to get that attitude across and a certain vibe, and you usually end up with metal, you know, just distorting it a little bit and just sort of trying to get that almost that secondary harmonic thing in there a little bit, just to get the grittiness in it, to sit it in with the guitars a little bit sometimes.
Right. Is that something you just do with an amp plugin? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's that Decapitator plugin I've been using quite a lot recently. That's quite good just to smash it up a little bit, you know. You know, it's almost like the tape saturation thing back in the day. You know, hitting the tape harder, just squash it a little bit, wouldn't it? So there's a little bit of that. We're just getting the attitude in there, really. And if you can get that across, then I think you're winning with vocals. Yeah.
And I've noticed you've also got some mastering credits as well. Is that something you're very often?
Well, yeah, just because I was so tired of things getting butchered in mastering, really.
Right.
You know, this whole loudness war that's been out there the past few years. I don't know. I mean, you can get. I think it's a compromise, isn't it? You've got to mix to your limiters a little bit and get it up there. You know, you don't want a CD that's too quiet, but then you don't want it. You know, you don't want it clipping or distorting or ruining the mix. You know, I've had mixes come back where it sounds like they've almost turned the dynamics inside out. You know, it's ducking on the kick and snare, and you're losing the dynamic of the whole mix. The whole punch of the mix has gone. You know.
So what do you do? Do your mastering all in the box then? Do you do?
Actually, I've got finalizer down there that's still really like. Ozone 4, I think, is pretty good. Been using that a bit recently. Russ got me into that actually.
So when you're actually putting a mix down, when presumably you're going, you know, bouncing it to a new pair of tracks.
Yeah.
A stereo track in Pro Tools. Do you have any mix bus processing? Do you use the SSL compressor?
Yeah, I use the SSL, but I'll be coming back on the external A.
Right.
Back out of Pro Tools on the stereo track, so I can put plugins and inserts on that, so I can hear what the mastering's going to do to it.
Yeah.
So I can tweak to the mastering limiters.
Yeah.
But I'm doing an unprocessed bounce, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So, you know, you know where you can. I mean, it's just you're kicking your snare is what's going to get damaged straight away with your limiters. So you can hear how far you can go with those.
Yeah.
You know. And get the levels up there to a reasonable, you know, not crushingly loud volume, but to a decent volume.
Yeah.
You know.
So how do you get that extremely clicky metal bass drum sound then? What's the trick to... is it is it the sound of the drum? Do you have a very hard beater, and is there a way of miking it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll use an SM91, you know, the flat PZM mic, the Shure.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's pretty good for that smack.
And where'd you put it? You
just sit it in.
Just stick it on a blanket or something?
Yeah, you know, on the pillow. Really EQ, really. I mean, you're sucking out the lower mids, just trying to get some smack to it. I mean, and obviously the sample that you're using, you know, getting a good smacky sort of sample with it.
So you always trigger a sample?
Yeah, you've got to. If you want to hear... you know, the clarity on the fast stuff, you really got to get some, even if it's just underneath. You know.
So it's a mix of the. So how do you trigger it? What do you use a bit of software to do that?
Yeah, well, there's the Stephen Slate trigger thing I've been using recently. There's Drum Rehab, which I actually like Drum Rehab a lot. There's a few little bugs in it. I was beta testing that for him when it was Trillion Lane Labs, I think, were doing it originally. Yeah. But that seemed pretty accurate to me. That has.
It's supposed to be sample accurate, isn't it? It's the only one that's really spot on.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The only thing is, if you've got some dodgy edits or something, it'll pick the odd, you know, clip waveform that's, you know, where someone's not done the beat detective work really properly, you know. But yeah, no, that one's pretty good. But the good thing about Trigger is that it runs. It's like Drumagog, it'll run live for you. So, you know, it's easy just to swap samples around. You can sort of audition stuff live, so that's quite a nice way of doing it.
So what are your tips for successful beat detectiving then? Do you have it, because there's ways that you can collect the different...
I don't even do that. I usually I'll make a group for the kicks, group for the top of the kit without the kicks,
right?
Because that's a lot of the time that's the main problem. You know, the drummer can't get his feet and hands quite in sync. You know, there's a lot of flamming going on between the kick and
so you're moving them separately.
Yeah, because you get away with it. You know, you can't quite. You know, you never get when it's stuff like that. You're never going to hear what the kicks are doing in the room mics and stuff. You know,
right.
It's all a bit blurry by the time it gets. You know, back in the halls.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah, you can get away with doing it. So on real fast stuff like that, I'll line the kicks and the top of the kit up separately.
Yeah. So you just go through and do you do the whole song in one go, or do you?
Oh God, no! I'll go through in pieces. You know, like sort of
8 bars or 6 bars.
Something like that. Do it, and then I'll always have the original behind it in a different playlist, so I can always go back to it.
Yeah.
But I'll go through consolidate sections at a time. You know, if you try and do it all in one go, you know, you guarantee you'll get the spinning ball of death by the end of the session. So I'll just go through it a section at a time. I'm really quick at it now, so I think just an understanding of time signatures helps as well.
It does in your game,
I mean, some real quite complicated stuff going off. So.
But to beat detective can cope with all that, can it?
It can do. I mean, I used to be just an absolute Nazi with it. I'd go through and, you know, Max got me here, and I was doing what I've just been saying everyone else is doing, and, you know, sucking the life out of it. Really, I'll only go in now if something catches my ear a couple of times when it goes past, you know, just nudge it into shape, and I'll try and get 4 or 5 takes, good takes out of the drummer, and compile. I'll never now sort of take a verse and pop it in for the second verse. I'll try and get another pass, because I think it's what I did on the Accept album. I made them play all the way through the songs rather than any of this cutting and pasting. Because I've been so guilty of that in the past, of you know, getting a good piece and putting it back in there, and it's like, why is that version wrong? You know, it's like, it's got a little bit of a squeak in it, but that's what happens when you play guitar, you know. So I try and be a bit more realistic about it now, and just, you know, I think that's down to experience as well. You sort of, you realise you know, when you listen back, it's actually quite boring to hear the same thing 10 times. You know?
Yes.
So,
that's a good tip.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with elastic audio at all?
Yeah, I have. I wouldn't use it for correcting drums.
No.
Because it's not phase accurate between the mics, you know, which is why they can't just, you know, why you can't apply it over a group and it you know, you have a group master or something. You know.
They haven't thought it through, have they?
No, I mean, no, they haven't. They bloody haven't. And I mean, there's little tricks you can do. Say you're doing it on a, you know, your tempo stretching a guitar track. You know, you can drop 2 tracks into a stereo track, and then it'll see it as one. You know, but guys, arse about tit way of doing it, isn't it? You know, it really is. You know,
you've used it for guitars and things.
Yeah, I've used it for actually upping tempos, like we were saying in choruses and stuff. You know, and you can actually, you know, you can get away with it. You don't hear the phase problems that you are actually creating between the tracks, you know, but it'd be nice if they could get on top of that and sort that out, you know.
Yeah. Secret tips and techniques that you think are particular things that you've developed, or top secret tips?
What, on handling musicians, you mean?
On anything, really. Techniques, or even technical stuff. Really.
Well, they wouldn't be top secret if I told you,
exactly. We won't tell anybody, though.
No, all right. I think playing mind games, actually. I mean, I don't like sort of saying that you do those sort of things, but you do get to know people's characters, and especially when you've done a couple of albums with them, and you learn to just know how to sort of manoeuvre around different personalities and how to, you know, make things. You know, when you get involved in an album, you've got an idea on how it should be, and you know, I will back down. I'm not one of these producers where it's got to be like this. It's got to be, you know, it's got to be done my way. I'll always try and work with a musician. I think that's the trick is finding that balance and getting to know people's personalities. And like I said earlier, finding the strengths within the bands. And you know, if one guitarist does something better than the other, you know, there's always a bit of an ego between 2 guitarists. A little bit, you know, there's always that battle between them. But you know, give them both something to do. You know, try and find a strength with each player. You know. I mean, I always try and compliment someone if it's good as well. I mean, it doesn't hurt to say that, you know. And it always, you know, if the producer is there, sort of giving, you know, saying well done, that was actually quite good, you know. It's nice to hear, you know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
I think
positive encouragement.
Yeah, I think you've always got to be positive in the studio, and I think it's. You know, just getting on with people, really. I mean, that's half the battle. There's a real. You know, especially when you're locked in a box with people for, you know, months on end. You know, I think there's anything not working out right, it's soon going to come to the forefront. So you've got to, you've definitely got to work on people's strengths. I think that's the main thing, and have a good time. Really enjoy it. That's what I try and do all the time. You know, I do. I love this job. I mean, I really, you know, metal for me has been my life for, you know, 30 years now. Yeah. So
that's almost a quote from the end of Spinal Tap. Have a good time all the time.
Yeah. And we do. Yeah.